Hello. One of the most complicated tasks you may be asked is to find a percentage of a cost. We're going to go through how to find the percentage, and we're going to show you a couple of different ways and methods of doing that. So the first thing we need to know is how are we finding a percentage of a certain number. Now, from your maths days, you may use percentages or decimals. Whichever you're used to and whichever you prefer, please stick with it. We're going to go through both methods just so you know. So we can see here we need to find the cost. We need to find 30% of the cost. So if I click into this cell here, where my formula is going to go, you can see it in the taskbar. We know that all formulas and functions start with an equals. So equals B3, which is the total cost, and I'm going to multiply it by 30%. Make sure you put the percent sign in. If you don't, you will just be multiplying that cell 30 times and you'll get a humongous number. So please put the percentage sign in. So this is the first method. Either just multiply the cell by the percentage you're looking for, or if you prefer to use decimals, we can do the same thing, but this time we've changed the percentage we're looking for into a decimal. So same again, I'm looking at B3, but I'm going to multiply it by 0.3. And as we know from our maths days, 0.3 is the decimal equivalent of 30%. So we just divided 30% by 100 and we've changed it to a decimal. Don't worry too much. I don't want to introduce too much maths into ICT, but if you choose one of these methods and whichever you prefer, stay with it. So let's try it out. I'm going to come into E8. Cell E8, and I'm going to put my formula in here because I want to find 17.5% of £23. So we know that we start with an equals. Click into the cell E8, and I'm going to multiply it by the percentage. Now I have to write this in because I'll go over this in a bit. I have to write that in because I have text and numerical data in the same cell. I can't click in that cell, it will confuse the computer. Now this is a mock, so the creator has placed in here hints, tips. So find 17.5, find 2.5. That won't be in your exam. So we can go through what it will look like if it's not there. So anyway, we found 17.5% of this. So all we need to do now is deduct the percentage from the original cost, and we're just doing a subtraction, which you've done in a previous calculation. So equals cell minus E3 come to 1898. So at this point, what we can do is, rather than keep adding the formulas into each row, we can highlight these two cells, hover on the bottom right hand corner, click and hold, and we can drag the formula down. Just click off the grey so we don't delete anything that's been highlighted. Got the noisy birds outside tweeting away, so apologies if you can hear that. But here you can see it's all done and dusted. That's fantastic. I'm going to let you carry on with the rest. Now we're going to come down to this next bit, still finding percentages, but we're using BODMAS or BIDMAS, whichever one you prefer. And we're going to do both these calculations in one format. So same again, I'm going to click on the total where I'm going to put my formula. We can see it in the taskbar. I want to find 30% of £35. So I am looking at B15, which is this one. I'm going to minus whatever the total is within inside the brackets. So basically I'm using the BIDMAS rules or the BODMAS rules. And I'm going to do the calculation inside the brackets first. And then once that's done, I'm going to bring it outside the brackets and do whatever it's asked me outside, which is take it away from the original sum. So again, use percentages, as I've done here, or you can use decimals. Now you've just got to remember this format. So a little bit of practice on BIDMAS and BODMAS. Let's try it out. So in cell E20, I'm going to equals cost minus open brackets. And I'm going to click into the cost again, multiplied by, and this time I'm going to use a decimal. So decimal equivalent of 17.5% is 0.175, close bracket, and I'll press 1898. this number should correspond with this one. Vice versa, all these numbers should correspond with their equivalent data above it. Now, all we've done with this one is done 2 steps within one formula. So we've actually done both these steps inside one. Now, you may get your table may be structured like this, and if it is, do it individually and then take it away, but it may be structured like this, so they'll be expecting you to do use BODMAS or BIDMAS and create a formula this way. 2 tips. If you do forget, we know what exams are like, they put pressure on everyone. If you do forget the long version, so using BIDMAS and that, don't be too concerned. One, have a go, put something in there because you will get points for something. However, another way of doing it is to copy this. So if I just delete this cell and if I just take off this bit, and so it's saying 17.5% discount from there, I can then create another cell beside it and I can cut and paste this into there. So this one now looks the same as that one. So if I do forget my BIDMAS, BODMAS rules, I can now go back to my original format, which is this one. I'm going to find 17.5% of this. So equals multiplied by, I'm going to do it by the percentage. So I've got £4.3, and then I can take the £4.3 away. Oops, apologies. This would be acceptable if you add this on. But let's hope by the time we get to the exam that you're okay with BODMAS, BIDMAS, and everything's hunky-dory. Same again, once you've done this, we can drag down. I'm going to take that back a bit. Okay, let's just make sure I've not forgot anything. Yeah, we've done the dragging down and across. Attempt the formula, please. So many times the students come to me and said that they weren't too sure how to do one of the formulas or functions, so they left it. No, give it a go, because you will get incremental marks. So important. The other thing is, I'm looking at here absolute references. So we were talking a bit before about different references, and we were looking at relative, absolute, and mixed. Well, in here, what we have is relative references where we've dragged them down. However, in your exam, I don't think it's going to have the find text in here. I think what it will look like is this. The find has been put in there because it's a mock and it's prompting you to do something. So I think in your exam, it will say something like this. So if I take all this data out, what you would do now then is similar to what we did with some of the other formulas before, is we would use cell references. So I'm going to say equals this one multiplied by this cell. I still get the same number, £4.03. However, the issue is if I drag this down, because we're looking at a single cell up here, if I click back into there, we're asking D8 to multiply by E7. But when I drag it down, we're asking D9, which is correct. We want it to multiply by this, but it's moved down as well to that one. So it's now not a relative cell reference. We need to make that absolute. This is more a level 2 exam. I'm going to go over absolute references later on, so I don't want to confuse too much. But just be careful. In level 1, it should appear something like this, but in level 2, be careful. If we are dragging references down, do we need to make them absolute? And you will recognize that if some data is on its own and not linked to the table, then we know that we have to make something absolute. But like I say, we're going to go over that later. The last thing, let me just take that off because it looks a bit ugly. I don't want to confuse. The last thing is check the spreadsheet over. I can't emphasize enough. Pearson's exams, you have to put your name exam code, student code, and your centre ID in the footer of the evidence, or else they won't mark any of this. And with City and Guilds, it's good practice to put it in there as well. The other thing is just check the spreadsheet for spellings, punctuation, grammar, proofread it, make sure all the cells are correct. If you are observant here, you will have noticed that this cell here is formatted to accountancy, whereas the rest are formatted to currency. So just be aware, I need to change that one back to currency, and it looks hunky-dory. Save and away you go. So the next thing we're going to go on to is functions, these three tabs. The next tab is actually a space. It's a blank sheet, just separates the formulas from the functions. So the next ones we're going to go on to is sum. So see you soon. Thank you very much.